Welcome back to another video, and today I am going to be doing my Premier League predictions for the 2021-22 season. Now, it's been a few years since I last did some Premier League predictions. It was the 2018-19 season when I last did them, and what are 2 seasons to not do them, eh? So I actually made the predictions table on Thursday the 12th of August. Today is Friday the 13th, the day of the first game, of course, with Brentford taking on Arsenal. I don't know if this video will be up before that game, but if not, then I will let you know now. These predictions were made before that game. But I suppose let's just get started, shall we? Go from bottom to top. I'm first up in last place, and funnily enough, the team I predicted to be in last place last time I did Premier League predictions, I'm putting Southampton. I don't know what it is, but I just seem to always tip Southampton to struggle, and I think this season they're going to struggle more than ever. They've lost their main man, Danny Ings. I mean, that is a huge loss for Southampton. When they didn't have him last season, they struggled massively, and they're going to struggle even more now that he is literally not at the club anymore. And he's not the only big loss to them either. Ryan Bertrand's also left for Leicester. It looks like Yannick Vestergaard is also off to Leicester. That's not been confirmed at this point in time, but it looks like he is off to Leicester. So that is 3 huge losses for Southampton, and if I was James Ward-Prowse right now, I'd be dipping quicker than flipping Usain Bolt out of that stadium. They have signed Adam Armstrong from Blackburn, which in a way is kind of like the Ollie Watkins signing of this season. He's been in the Championship for a few years. He probably is ready for that step up to the Premier League, but he is no Danny Ings replacement, at least not in my opinion. In 19th place, the first of the 3 promoted teams, I am going with Norwich. Norwich are just that yo-yo club at the moment, aren't they? They're too good for the Championship and not good enough for the Premier League. And I remember that last time they got promoted and were in the Premier League, I think their chairman or chief executive or whoever he is even said that they got promoted earlier, well, like too early. They were not ready to be a Premier League club. I think now they might be, but I still don't think they're quite there yet. I mean, they have made some pretty decent signings this time around, the likes of Milo Rashica and Billy Gilmore from Chelsea. That's a pretty big one. And also the likes of Josh Sargent. I can never say his name properly. One big loss for them is Emi Buendia, who went to Aston Villa. Aston Villa just poaching all of the not as good club's players, aren't they? I don't know, it just feels like Norwich don't quite have the personnel and the squads there to really be able to try and stay up. I'm not saying that they're going to go down without a fight, but I just don't think they're quite good enough yet. Next up, in 18th place, another team that I just seem to never have confidence in when I make these predictions, that is Newcastle United. I don't know what it is, it just feels like they're a massive club. They've got loads of money, and they've got an owner who is unwilling to use it. And as of right now, as I'm talking, they've pretty much signed no one. It looks like they are going to get Joe Willock. I suppose the only thing really going for Newcastle at the moment is the fact that they also haven't lost any of their players. Their squad is still pretty much the exact same as it was. But in my opinion, it's just not really good enough. I mean, they had a massive surge up the table at the end of last season. I mean, they did okay last season, but I just don't have any confidence in them. So now in 17th place, I have the second of the 3 promoted teams, and I am going with Watford. Watford last season were just quietly good. Like, I didn't really hear much of Watford, and they finished in 2nd place. Like, they were good. I don't know how though, that's the thing. And Watford have also quietly made some decent business in this transfer window as well, signing the likes of Danny Rose, pretty decent player, Emmanuel Dennis, who's a very good, promising, up-and-coming player from Club Brugge. They've also signed Peter Etebo, who I still don't know why Stoke are not keeping him there. Josh King, proven Premier League striker, and also a decent midfielder in Juraj Kushka as well. But Watford last season were just quietly good, weren't they? They just did the job. They just got the job done and went up. So I don't really know what to expect from them this season, but I put them in 17th because I think that they have the capability of staying up. In 16th, the 3rd and final team of the 3 promoted teams, I am putting Brentford. See, I feel like I know more about Brentford than I do about Watford. Yeah, Watford did so much better than Brentford last season. It's weird. Brentford have just got that way of playing, haven't they? They play really well. However, will that translate into the Premier League? A bit like Norwich, they've got this really good way of playing, but in the Premier League, it just hasn't seemed to have worked well yet. Brentford have made a couple of decent signings, at least that I know of. Christopher Ayer, pretty good defender, deserves his chance to the Premier League. Frank Onyeka, decent young I can't remember if he's a defender or a midfielder. In terms of players that have left, the only ones I can really say might have some sort of an effect are the likes of Emiliano, who's gone to Bournemouth. They just straight up released him for some reason. He's the one who won them the playoff final even. He was one of their sort of main players, wasn't he? I'm pretty sure, playing at right back for them, so goodness knows why he's gone. They're going to be threatened with relegation, but they're going to muscle their way out of it and eventually maybe start building a little bit more and getting a little bit higher up. That's what I feel like they're going to do. Now in 15th, I have put Crystal Palace. Now I watched Cutsy's Premier League predictions the other day, and funnily enough, he had Crystal Palace in 15th, and the only reason he had them there was because that's just where they fit in. They were the last team he put in there. For me, it's kind of been the same thing. I didn't know where to put them. I didn't know whether to put them lower, to put them higher. They're a big unknown this season at Crystal Palace. They've got a new manager in Patrick Vieira, and his managerial record isn't the best, but you never know. They've also had a massive rebuild as well. I mean, now Roy Hodgson's gone. Most of Roy Hodgson's squad is gone as well. Wayne Hennessy released, Andros Townsend released, Mamadou Sakho released, Patrick Van Aanholt gone, Gary Cahill gone, James McCarthy, Scott Dan, all of those older, experienced players, most of them anyway, are gone, and in comes some fresh new bloods in the form of the likes of Michael Olise from Reading and Mark Gurhey and Joachim Andersen, who did very well for Fulham last season, by the way. They are a massive unknown, and I honestly have no idea how they're going to do, so I just plonked them in 15th because they were the only club that I really didn't have a clue how I thought they would do. In 14th, I have gone for Brighton. If England got rid of Gareth Southgate and then had a look through the list of British, mostly English managers, I know they don't only have to pick English managers, but if they had a list of English managers, Graham Potter should be right at the top of that list, 100%. The only problem with Brighton is the transfer window that they've had so far. They've signed 5 players. I'll be honest, I don't know who any of them are, so I can't really judge their signings. Unfortunately for them though, they've lost quite a few of their decent players, the likes of Izquierdo, Davy Propper's gone, Matt Ryan, the goalkeeper, although in fairness, Sanchez has done extremely well as their first choice goalkeeper. Alireza Jahanbakhsh as well, that's a pretty big one for them. And of course the biggest one being Ben White, who made his way to Arsenal. If they can convert their chances this season, which is something they really struggled to do last season, I mean their XG stats compared to actual goals was ridiculous. They should have scored so many more goals than they did. They will start climbing the table. I think that they might be able to maybe slowly convert more of those chances. We'll see. Let's find out. And I think that they will convert a few more of them, which is why I put them in 14th. In 13th, I have put Burnley. You do know what you're going to get in terms of watching them play. What you don't know what you're going to get is whether they're going to convert that into results or not. But Burnley, I never know where to put them. So I've just stuck them in 13th because, you know, Sean Dyche, 4-4-2, they're going to survive. In 12th place, I have put Wolves. They're in a bit of a transition of Wolves. They didn't have the greatest of seasons last season, but that was mainly because of Raul Jimenez and his head injury, so he was out for for most of the season. Fabio Silva did an alright job. Willian Jose was just rubbish, at least from what I watched anyway. They're in a bit of a transitional period now, Wolves. They've lost Nuno Espirito Santo to Tottenham. They've got a new manager in Bruno Lage. I don't know how to exactly say his name, but that is his name said in some sort of way or form. He's another Portuguese manager, and they've sort of continued with the philosophy of transfers, of bringing in Portuguese players or, you know, players from that sort of area of Europe. They've brought back Ryan Aït-Nouri on a permanent deal, which is a great deal for them. They've lost Rui Patricio, though, their main number one goalkeeper, who's been there ever since they come back to the Premier League. He has now left for Roma. However, they have replaced him with Jose Sa, who is also a pretty decent goalkeeper. And a pretty big one for them as well is Francisco Trincao from Barcelona. Of course, Barcelona are trying to offload as many players as they can. They've got him on loan with, I think, a view to a permanent deal. You know, if he kicks on in the way that Pedro Neto did last season, then Wolves will be sorted, especially if Raul Jimenez gets back to playing as soon as possible. I know he has played in pre-season as well. Then that a front three of Neto, Trincao and Jimenez could be a force to be reckoned with. In 11th place, I have got Leeds United. I think Leeds will be pretty much the same as they were last season. They've got pretty much the same squad. They have made a couple of decent signings, Junior Firpo being the big one from Barcelona. But they've also signed Jack Harrison on a permanent deal from Manchester City. He's been on loan there for the last 2-3 seasons, something like that. So now to have him at the club permanently, he's going to be a big asset for Leeds, that's for sure. They clearly don't look for keeping clean sheets. They just try and score as many goals as they can, and I absolutely love that about them. And I think it's working for them. Clearly, it worked for them last season, so I think it'll work for them again this season, and they'll finish in and around the same sort of area. In 10th place, I have got a club that is going to be in the Europa League this season. That is West Ham. And I think that will be the reason why they will finish a bit lower down this season. They've got a really small squad, and it's also a Jesse Lingard-less squad as well now, because obviously he was only on loan. I think Manchester United want to keep him this season, so he won't be there, and he was one of their better players in the second half of last season as well. Also just seen they've also signed a player called Armstrong Oko Flex, which is a fantastic name. The problem is that their squad is so small. They need players just to fill out the quota almost, like having a Europa League and a Premier League campaign and also all the cups as well. Their squad's not big enough. They need a bigger squad. And that's why I think that they're going to struggle a bit more this season, because they just don't have the squad to compete in every competition they're in. In 9th place, I have got Everton. They've had one of the weirdest transfer windows I've ever seen. They've literally signed rejects. Asmir Begovic, released by Bournemouth. Andros Townsend, released by Crystal Palace. And Damari Gray, who wasn't released by a club, but they've signed him on the cheap from Bayer Leverkusen. Those three players, in my opinion, do not improve Everton's squad. I mean, Andros Townsend might, in fairness. He's such an underrated player, especially at Crystal Palace. He'll be a huge loss to Crystal Palace. I think that Andros Townsend could do bits for Everton. Everton will just be in around the same area. Of course, they've got a new manager in Rafa Benitez, but I think they're going to be in and around the same area as they were last season. In 8th place, I have got Aston Villa. Now then. Of course, their main man, Jack Grealish, has headed off to Manchester City for 100 million, and they have spent that money very wisely. In fact, they spent it before they even got it. I feel like they were that confident that they were going to, Jack Grealish was going to go, because of course 100 million was his release clause, that they went and spent it before he'd gone. Emi Buendia, Ashley Young, Leon Bailey, Danny Ings, Axel Tuanzebe. Huge signings. They've probably got a stronger squad now than they did when they had Jack Grealish, which is actually something that Dean Smith said. And because they spent that money before they got the Jack Grealish money, it probably means that they got some of these players a little bit cheaper than they might have done had they waited until they got the money. And now here's where it gets spicy, or a bit more spicy anyway. The top 7th place, I have got Arsenal. It just feels like they haven't improved any, apart from getting Ben White and maybe the signings of Nuno Tavares and Albert Sambi Lokonga. But I don't know enough about those latter two players. Ben White, obviously, solid defender. Will he be good enough? We'll see and find out. He was pretty decent for Brighton anyway, I'll say that. Brighton's problem last season wasn't their defending, it was their attacking. Simple as that. They lost games because they failed to score rather than being poor at defending. So I feel like Ben White should shore up that Arsenal defence just a little bit more, maybe. We'll see what happens. Of course, Arsenal, they're in a bit of a weird place. They are definitely in a transitional phase, are Arsenal. And I don't know how far along in that transitional phase they are. In 6th place, I have got their North London rivals, Tottenham, of course. Tottenham are another team that are going through a bit of a transitional phase at the moment. I mean, we don't know what's happening with Harry Kane. Is he going to stay? Is he going to go? Who knows? At the moment, he's still there, so I'm making this prediction based on that. Although, to be fair, if he'd gone, I probably would have put them in the same place. Tottenham have signed Christian Romero from Atalanta. Pretty decent defender, I think. He got, what did he get? Atalanta's Player of the Season or Serie A Defender of the Season or something. He got a Something of the Season award in some way. They've signed Brian Hill from Sevilla, who I know absolutely nothing about, but he must be a decent prospect because they've whacked the number 11 shirt on him. And to be fair, with Nuno Espirito Santo at the helm, he's done this sort of thing before, hasn't he? Where he's bought a young player and just thrown him straight into the first team, and they've done well. I'm looking at you, Pedro Neto. If Brian Hill does does anything like Pedro Neto did for Wolves, then Tottenham have got a decent player on their hands. They've also signed Pierluigi Golini from Atalanta as well. the goalkeeper. In terms of players they've let go, Toby Alderweireld is the big one, really. They've let him go, but replaced him with Romero. I don't know how different Christian Romero is to Alderweireld. We'll wait and see. And of course, they've now lost Eric Lamela because he was part of the Bryan Hill deal. He's swapped. Eric Lamela's gone to Sevilla. But I don't really see Tottenham being a massive challenger to the top 4 this season, although you never know. In 5th place, I have got everyone's favourite Premier League team, and probably the Premier League team that all the big 6 love to hate, because they always seem to be buzzing around there, and that is Leicester. Leicester have just kind of marched their way into the top 6 and just been like, hi, we're here now, we're staying here. I don't see Leicester dropping from this top 6 or top 7 anytime soon either. They're just there. It feels like they're there to stay. Really good signings from them. Patson Daka's a big one. Ryan Bertrand, very good, experienced defender, and Boubakary Samare, who I know absolutely nothing about. Although they have lost Wes Morgan, he's now retired. Of course, he didn't really play all that much, did Morgan, but he was the captain. He'll have been an influence in the dressing room. Now then, the top 4, here we go. First up, 4th place, I've got Liverpool. I just feel like they're not going to make strides towards the next 3 teams. Probably going to be better than they were last season. Last season, obviously, they had the injuries to Van Dijk and Gomez, and they just didn't perform at their best. They went on like a 5 or 6 game losing streak at home or something after not losing there for 60 plus games. It was actually ridiculous how their season went. They've signed 1 player and 1 player only. It's a decent one. Ibrahima Konate from RB Leipzig. One player that could be a big loss to them is Gini Wijnaldum, of course. He's left for PSG. And he was a mainstay in their midfield, so goodness knows who they're going to play instead of him. I'm not saying they won't challenge for the title, they might challenge for the title, you never know how close the title race is going to be, but I think that they're going to end up in 4th. 3rd place, this was a tough one because it was between 3 clubs: Liverpool, the club I'm about to say, and the club I'm going to predict as one of the top 2. And I'm going to go with Manchester United in 3rd place. Finished 2nd last season, huge achievement for them, big step forward for them. There was no title challenge. I was going to say, they didn't really challenge for the title. There was no challenge for the title because Manchester City were just too good. But they've finally gone out and made big signings. Jadon Sancho is the big one. That is huge for them. They needed someone like that, and they've gone out and got him. Another person who they needed someone like is Raphael Varane, although he is not confirmed to be a Manchester United player yet, even though Manchester United are so weird with their transfers. They announced that they've signed someone before they've signed someone. They announced that they'd signed Raphael Varane 2 weeks ago, and they still haven't signed him yet. They'd announced that they reached the agreement in principle. They did the same with Jadon Sancho, although they signed him like 3 days later. But Varane, I think, is going to be a Manchester United player, which is going to be huge for their defence because, let's face it, Lindelof's crap, Bailly is injury prone, their only decent centre-back is Harry Maguire. So having Maguire and Varane as a centre-back pairing will be huge for them. But even though I say that, I put them a place lower down than they finished last season because I think that Chelsea will finish above them in this season. A huge signing, Romelu Lukaku. He will do amazing things in their attack. I mean, to be fair, I think everyone said the same thing about Timo Werner, but look what happened to him. However, Lukaku is a proven Premier League goal scorer. He's also played for Chelsea before, don't forget as well. He's a proven Premier League goal scorer, playing at the very bottom with West Brom, in the middle with Everton, and at the top with Manchester United. His first spell at Chelsea is the only spell at a club he's had where he's not been prolific at all. Thomas Tuchel is a brilliant manager. I mean, he's come into Chelsea, he's won the Champions League, he's won the Super Cup, and it's just absolutely mad how quickly they've progressed on from having Frank Lampard as manager. So that leaves 1 team and 1 team only left at the top, and you already knew probably when this video started who was going to be there, and it is of course Manchester City. I can't look past Manchester City at the moment for winning the league. I just can't do it. I can't. They're too good. Their squad's too good. It's not even just their first 11 that's too good. Their entire squad, they could literally play their entire backup 11 and win the league with that. That's how good their squad is. Of course, the addition of Jack Grealish will be huge for them. They played a lot of the season without a striker, and they still won the league, which is just mad. And I personally think that Jack Grealish is like, it's not the perfect false 9 for that sort of thing, but he could really work in that false nine role. If not, then play someone like Kevin De Bruyne or Ilkay Gundogan in that area, and play Grealish out wide on one side with Sterling on the other, and oh my days, they've just got too much of a squad. They've just got to... if you don't predict Manchester City to win the title this season, I'm not going to say you've got something wrong with you, because everyone's entitled to their opinion, of course, and of course loads of people probably want that dominance of Manchester City to end, or Manchester City and Liverpool really, because they've both been at it for a few years. And that is it for my Premier League predictions for the 2021-22 season. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and if you think I've got any dead wrong, of course let me know, but please just be respectful in that, because at the end of the day, it's just my opinion. I am a neutral Premier League fan as well. I do not support a Premier League club at all. I don't support a rival of a Premier League club at all. So it's completely neutral. It's just from what I watch and what I've seen and what I feel. If you enjoyed this, make sure to smash that like button down below. Subscribe if you like what you see and you want to see more. And if you don't want to miss a video, hit that little bell next to the subscribe button and you'll get a notification whenever I upload. Until next time, thanks so much for watching. Peace.